everyone, and welcome to The Ride Home. Today, I wanted to spend some time talking about the power of connection. You see, all of us will go through our lifetime asking ourselves three basic questions, all for one reason: acknowledgement. Whether we're at work, in our personal lives, in relationships, sometimes even with strangers, we ask ourselves three basic questions. Do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I have to say matter to you? While these three questions are not always questions that we ask ourselves consciously, when you slow down enough to answer them for yourself and for others, the connection that you build is powerful, meaningful, and very gratifying. So whether you're asking yourself these questions at work or in your personal life, or if you're asking someone these questions, maybe not directly but indirectly, it's important that we're able to understand what this means to us. Also, we have to remember that people ask these questions of us just as much as we do of them. So let's start with the first one. Do you see me? This is not just a physical thing. This is not just an observable thing. Although yes, I know that when we are driving and somebody cuts us off, the very first thing you ask is, do you see me? Did you not see me crossing? We feel unacknowledged. We feel diminished. We feel unimportant. But what does it mean to truly see someone? The biggest thing is understanding who they are as a person and acknowledging that. Acknowledging their contributions to you, to an organization, the joy that they may bring to you. All of this is incredibly important. When acknowledging someone, it's important that you slow down enough to understand who they are as a person. That we seek to understand and that we celebrate them for who they are. There's nothing more powerful than somebody truly being able to acknowledge who you are as a person and the contributions that you bring to somebody's life or somebody's or your organization. That we acknowledge that who they are makes a difference in what they do. And quite honestly, we are all unique. We are all different. We all have different experiences that have made us who we are today. And therefore, the contribution that we have on this earth is very unique. The second question is, do you hear me? There's always an undertone to what we say. People never are comfortable telling you directly what they think. Sometimes we don't know how to communicate how we feel. So it's important to understand and dive into what people really mean when they say, do you hear me? It's important to ask people, how do you like to be heard? It's also important important to understand key buzzwords. We all know them. The more we get to know somebody, the more we know how to read in between the lines. Mothers are always good at this. When you quietly go and try to tell mom something, and then she kind of slows down and says, hold on. Don't try to sugarcoat what you're trying to say. Just be honest. Tell me what you mean. Because what you're telling me right now doesn't add up. And this happens with various peoples in different relationships as we get to know them. So it is very important that we know that over time, when you spend shared experiences with people, you begin to know this. But what happens when you just met somebody for the first time? How do you get to know that? I'm sure many of you have tips and tricks around how you get to build that vulnerability or create an environment where people feel comfortable opening up and telling you truly what they mean. But always remember that when somebody says something, what you are hearing isn't always what they are meaning. The last question is, does what I have to say matter to you? And this is less about what we hear. This is less about the information that is given to us. And this has everything to do with action. When somebody tells you something and you're able to respond to it, you automatically create that sense of acknowledgement. When somebody says, I have a concern, that you slow down enough and listen to it, but more importantly, that you react to it. That you show them through your actions that what they have told you has had an impact on you. Sometimes people may tell us things that we may not agree with. And being able to just simply follow back up and acknowledge the fact that you heard them. That you spent some time thinking about what they said. And that you're open to some discussion and conversation to be able to collaboratively solve whatever problem they have had. It's also important to know that when you are speaking to someone, you might be waiting for them to come to you and tell you that they have heard you. People don't always feel comfortable coming back. I would ask you to not live in conflict with that, but rather try to understand. Did I deliver the message the right way? Did people understand what I was trying to say? It is also your own responsibility to be able to take control over those three questions. Do you see me? Do you hear me? Does what I have to say matter to you? And too often enough, we like to shift that responsibility to somebody else and constantly live in this conflict where we feel that we are not being acknowledged and that we are owed acknowledgement. I would ask you, what are you doing to take responsibility for that? How do you take responsibility for your own acknowledgement? Do you slow down enough to acknowledge yourself? This concept, this theory, this idea of acknowledgement takes on so many different forms. And there's different ways and different opportunities to acknowledge someone. When we're in the grocery line, getting ready to pay, so easy to just turn around and say, hello, how are you? How's your day coming along? And vice versa. When somebody turns around and says hello to you and acknowledges your presence, do you shut down? Do you think to yourself, oh my gosh, I don't have time for small talk? Or do you take advantage of that? That for a brief moment, you can have a nice conversation where you can feel seen and you can validate somebody and let them know that you see them. There's so many moments and sequences and times that we control and that we don't control. I'll use work for example. There are always employees and coworkers that come and go. Sometimes you spend time with people for just the season. Sometimes for a reason. If you're lucky, for a lifetime. But you have to remember everything that it took for all of you to come to be in the same space at that same time. The random odds, the different reactions, responses, the different turn of events that had led to one thing, a moment where the people who are in your space are together. And what you do with that is up to you. Do you take the moment to build relationships, to acknowledge somebody, to learn from somebody? Do you take that time to also share what you know, to acknowledge them and be acknowledged, to become a better person by sharing who you are, and also becoming a better person by allowing yourself to learn from somebody? After all, tomorrow is not guaranteed, and yesterday is behind us. But yesterday has led you to today. Do you make the most of that person? Do you acquire as much as you can and give meaning to that moment? And you answer those questions and allow them to acknowledge your existence. Create a great memory. Or do you simply let that moment pass you by? Unknowingly let the opportunity to be enriched by someone else. Or let go of the opportunity to enrich someone. What will you do with that moment? After all, we all go through life asking ourselves those three questions. We spend a lifetime seeking acknowledgement. Do you see me? Do you hear me? And does what I have to say matter to you? Everyone, thank you so much for taking the time to listen. If you like this video, please hit like. If you know somebody who might find value or interest in this video, don't forget to share. If you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. And I would encourage you all to listen to the previous videos. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, I will see you on the ride home.